Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and get started in another minute or so. Again, we are recording this. Please feel free to chat along the way with other folks in the webinar chat. There is a questions section with Zoom as well, so please submit questions throughout. We'll try and address them during, but we might also, we'll definitely have a section at the end to answer all questions as well. And the questions, of course, are not just for me. We're really excited today to have our partner at the YMCA of Greater Charlotte, Kim Conroy, on with us as well. So please chime in with questions for her as well. She's going to be our guest speaker, and she's going to talk about her whole experience with being the Executive Director of Risk Management for the YMCA of Greater Charlotte, now being the Executive Director of Camp Thunderbird. And she's been just such a great partner to our company from the very beginning. We've been using PunchAlert for many years, and really the primary inspiration behind why we developed Rescue in the first place. So she can really give you her stories and their stories as an association of why this is important and incidents and so on. So really, the YMCA, we've learned, is such a great community of people across the country, and so your experiences shared with each other are just so valuable. And so please chime in with your thoughts and questions throughout, and we'll make sure to address everything at the end. But with that said, I'm going to go ahead and get started. All right, so here's just a quick agenda for today. So I'm going to introduce Kim. Kim's going to talk a little bit about her experience, of course, with PunchAlert, but more broadly about being the Executive Director of Risk Management for the YMCA of Greater Charlotte and her transition to her current role, and just in general about emergencies and how they've handled them, and aquatic safety and why rescue is important. And then we'll kind of carry it all together with our backstory as well of how we got started with this in conjunction with Kim and the why. And then we'll kind of take you through kind of the layout of what we see as the problem, the situation with lifeguards, and then our kind of product journey in terms of starting out with a prototype, how it works, what it looks like. We're going to give you some sneak previews of what it's actually looking like today in its alpha form, and then pre-order details. Time for questions. So this is our agenda for today. And without further ado, I'm really excited to introduce Kim Conroy. Most of you probably have heard her name or know her already. You know, we've been going to the YMCA Risk Management Conference for several years now, and Kim feels like such a leader, and she is truly a leader in this space, and really a first mover in terms of so many areas, being kind of ahead of the game and forward thinking in terms of where you need to be as far as safety and risk management. So Kim, without any more my time, I think, why don't you just share your thoughts on you know, what you've done as far as risk management, safety, and aquatic safety, and so on.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Greg. So a little bit about our history with PunchAlert. Greg mentioned we've been a customer for years, and we rolled it out in 2015. So the YMCA of Greater Charlotte has 19 standalone branches with 2 resident camps, and then we have hundreds of off-site locations, like too many to even try to count. We have about 5,000 employees, and then we have hundreds of thousands of members. The number flexes a little bit, but it's a couple 100,000 members. And when we rolled out PunchAlert as a standalone product, we were looking at just ensuring we had so many security emergencies that happened. That's really where we were starting, was our concern around how are we providing a tool for our staff to communicate with each other during, our thought was initially an active assailant event. And so we had rolled it out. We found that we utilized PunchAlert much more frequently for non-security events, so weather-related emergencies. We use it for power failures, utility issues, weather events. We use it for those almost as much as we do for medical emergencies. We also use it for announcements, just to be able to communicate with staff. But in 2017, we experienced a drowning of a lifeguard. It is an incredibly rare instance that might happen, but we have many, many one-guard facilities. So we have some pretty simple designed pools, so your standard rectangle pool. And in 2017, we had a lifeguard who was opening, and the pool had not yet opened, so she had not yet finished her opening duties, checking the pool chemicals and just getting the tube set up and regular opening duties, when she experienced what is believed to be a medical emergency. She had a history of some medical issues that we were unaware of, but nonetheless, we know now that she had that. And she fell into the pool. She didn't even have her swimsuit on yet, so we know that her intent was not to enter the pool. There's a lot of speculation as to, well, did she get in the pool to swim laps or to, do something before we opened? And no, that does not appear to be the case. So she fell in the pool, and because there was no one else on the pool deck with her, and it was so early in the morning, no one realized the pool was even open, or not open, for another hour and a half of the morning. So there was no one else who tried to use the pool, no communication to our sales and service desk, just nothing for that hour and a half. During the National Risk Conference for YMCAs in 2017, I shared during a presentation called Real Life and Real Lessons, where a couple of risk managers from across the country got up and shared our story about a major event that we had experienced during the year, and what are some lessons and takeaways that other Ys could benefit from. So I shared that story, and the PunchAlert team was there. They were a sponsor for our conference, and so they were there and happened to overhear the story, and were really compelled by what was shared and felt like they could help. And so during that conference, we got together with multiple other risk managers that I was close with, or that the PunchAlert team knew. So we pulled together a small team during a lunch, and we just talked about what could it look like to have a system that could, if it were water activated, if the lifeguard were wearing it, if they entered the water for any reason, that could notify through a PunchAlert everybody, and especially the sales and service desk. So we had looked at a couple other systems as a Y before, because our Y has financial capacity to implement some technology things that could benefit. But ultimately, because of the design of our buildings, we were having a hard time finding a system that could notify our sales and service desk. It could set off an alarm, but the alarm was typically in the pool area or in the general vicinity, and that didn't work for us. So the PunchAlert team said, we want to figure out a way to create something that will notify everybody through PunchAlert. And that way it's not just in your building. You have people from all over who will know and can help, but also it can go to your sales and service team or anybody else anywhere in the building who can help. And so they did that, and they worked with us, and they worked with people across the country. They had a whole lot of research, because the technology was not that easy to develop and to create into a working platform that will talk through water. That turned out to be a little more complicated than anyone initially thought. But they created a product and a tool that I think is really pretty awesome. We experience in Charlotte every year, with our lifeguards alone, typically a few seizures. So our lifeguard is on the lifeguard stand or close to the water, and they'll have a seizure. We've been lucky enough that most of the time there are other people around, usually another lifeguard, but other people who can come in to help. But there are other medical emergencies that our lifeguards have experienced, heat exhaustion, diabetic emergencies, things where our lifeguard need help. We've also had 4 lifeguards who made rescues. They jumped in after someone because there was a medical emergency happening really close to them. And even though we have emergency buttons in our pool area, if the lifeguard isn't standing near that, if they're not on a stand where it's located, or they're not next to the wall where it's mounted, then they have to run around the pool to push the button and then jump in and make the rescue. And we've had a few lifeguards whose instinct was to jump in and rescue the person in front of them, but then they got into a point where either the person was larger than them, or it was too difficult a rescue to get them out themselves. So now you have a lifeguard in a pool who needs help but doesn't have the means to tell someone they need help. So we've had a couple instances, well, 4. We've had 4 instances where those have happened. They all ended up turning out okay, but for the delay in time when they had to figure out a way to get help to them, we just felt like we could do better. We can do better for our lifeguards, and we think that this is a good way as a communication tool for our lifeguards. We also, in our branches, we have those same emergency buttons that we have on the pool deck. We have those in other locations at our branches. So we'll have them on our fitness floor. We have them in major program areas. So sometimes on our basketball courts, sometimes in our group exercise studios. But where we are lacking them is at our sales and service desks, because those panic buttons all just go to the sales and service desk. So if the sales and service desk pushes the panic button, right now in our branches, no one else is going to hear it but the front desk. So we'd like to roll these out to be utilized at all of our front desks, our after school and day camp lines for pickup for kids. Sometimes we have parents who are aggressive or threatening with staff. We also have parents who show up under the influence, and having young staff, 16 to 18-year-olds, who are receiving those parents in that line. Sometimes they need help when something like that happens, and a phone call isn't always discreet enough, or they don't feel comfortable enough to make that call. And so having a panic button for them there is something that we would really like to do. Our CEO wants to wear one. We're a large enough organization, and we've had some events in Charlotte that have created some tension in the past, where he has had threats against him. So having one for our CEO, his administrative assistant really wants one. So we'll have use for these outside of the waterfront. We'd like to use the rescue buttons for more than just that. But from a life-saving standpoint in our waterfront at this time, we think this is going to be the first product that really meets the needs of what we would have needed on the day to save our lifeguard's life.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Kim, for sharing that story. I mean, I remember when you said that in 2017 in Seattle, and that's kind of a good segue here. I'm sure everyone has questions for Kim, so please start thinking about those and writing those down as you think of them. Oops, kind of jumped ahead on me. But yeah, it was in Seattle that we heard. You know, we'd known about the death in Charlotte, unfortunately, but we didn't know what caused it until Kim spoke at that conference, and that's when we learned, along with everyone else in the room, of what happened. And clearly, PunchAlert was not able to help that person because, you know, she didn't have a smartphone. Even if she did, it wasn't going to be helpful in that scenario. So the only solution would be an automated way of knowing there's an emergency going on, and you know, and along with learning of that incident where clearly we couldn't have helped, or couldn't help, was the fact that the safety turtle product that everyone was talking about had been discontinued for the Y market, and so we kind of learned about that around the same time, and so aquatic safety was clearly a big topic of discussion, and Kim, as she mentioned, helped us have this little roundtable discussion where we talked about the future. Just make things interactive a little bit. I'm just out of curiosity. If you're with a Y, and I'd be curious to see just whether you ever experimented with Safety Turtle or whether you continue to use it today. So if you don't mind writing into that little chat thread, whether you use Safety Turtle, don't even know about them, or don't use them, or whatever reason, that'd be just good information for everybody to see. But clearly there were some good things about it. I mean, it did automatically activate in water, which was important. but it really wasn't an industrial grade solution. It had a whole host of other problems, and so we knew we could do much better than that. So let me we'll move to the next slide here. So we knew it had to water activate. First, we started with water. Now we learned quickly from Kim and others that there was a need beyond just the oops, this thing keeps moving forward. There was a need beyond just lifeguards, and we've been asked since the very beginning of PunchAlert, do you have any physical buttons that tie into PunchAlert? And so that's something we've wanted to solve for quite some time, because since we never had the impetus to actually create a physical panic button. But the idea was pretty clear with rescue. It needed to be water activated, but it also needed to be activated with a button. Even lifeguards don't always have to go in the water, obviously, to declare an emergency or to see something going on. So water is one way of activating, and the button's another, and that really expanded the use case and the need for Ys and customers outside of the Y as well. So, but looking at the problem of water, I mean, obviously we all know this. Drowning is a significant cause of concern for us all. It's the third leading cause of deaths of unintentional injury, accounting for 7% of all injury-related deaths. It's with children especially a problem. And we know that lifeguards are obviously something you all invest in deeply, and lifeguards are terrific. Unfortunately, lifeguards are also expensive. Many pools only have one. And so I know that's one question. Certainly, I'll ask Kim if you all don't at the end, which is just to talk about lifeguards a little bit. I mean, how many do you have? Do lifeguards have a way? Obviously, she mentioned how they can report emergencies today on a wall, and there are other solutions out there. But how many lifeguards can you have? Obviously, you add a second lifeguard to a single pool, and that's fairly expensive. It's great to have more, but they need to change their shifts frequently, and you got to think about all that. So how do they report an emergency? And just keeping in mind what we learned from Kim's story was it's not just about helping them help others. It's also about just helping them. The lifeguard themselves may be at risk, and we didn't realize how many lifeguards often have seizures as well. So clearly the problem was there. So 2018, fast forward, we created our prototype, showed up at the Risk Management Conference this time in Boston, and this pretty little guy here in the middle is what we presented, along with this tower base station, which you'll see in a moment. And at the time it was called AquaPunch, and we have folks on our team that really were tied to that name, and very correctly we were given some better ideas like rescue, and credit that to the YMCA of Charlotte as well, so we renamed it Rescue. But this is a wearable. It's designed to be on the wrist. Now, some of the feedback we got from that conference was, okay, the wrist is great, but that may not be the only way I want to wear it. I might want to wear it on my shoulder. I might want to wear it on my neck. I might want to put it on something else. So we did make it more flexible. So we'll talk more about that. So this was we had a little video here. Why don't I take a moment and share that? I'm going to switch the share to something else here. Okay, hopefully everyone can see that. You can see it activates with the button. The tower, for those of you that were in Boston, you saw this live, makes a pretty loud noise. The button activates the tower, and then you'll see it activate immediately in water when submerged. And there it goes. So pretty simple, dual activation. It's waterproof. It was using a low-frequency radio spectrum, and we'll talk about how that evolved immensely with the newest version. So as you can see, we've enhanced the look and feel of this product quite a bit, and this is what it looks like today. And thanks to everybody that's submitting messages in the chat thread. We'll go through those as well in a little bit. So what you're looking at today is what's coming out at the end of this year, or in Q1 of next year is going to be our first volume production and deliveries. And that's kind of like what a standard package looks like. One base station, 4 buttons, and then the charging station. So these buttons can be charged simply by plugging them in. And so let's go through them kind of component by component. So starting with the band, if you can see here, this is kind of the most standard kind of wearable use case for your wrist. So it has a little button on there, and these things on the sides are actually the water sensors. And so that's where you'll see. What we're currently using is actually gold for automatically detecting water. So it does need to be submerged. It would not activate just from a splash, but is a reliable wearable safety device because we're going to be monitoring these bands, these devices from the base station. So we'll talk a lot more about that. But you notice the inductive charging on one end. You can see the buttons very clearly, easy to press, submerged, or depressed rather, and the branding. So pretty simple, flexible, wearable use case. The device has a clip, so it can be clipped on clothing if you like. It does have a little light on the inside, so you'll see when it's activated. You press it once to activate an emergency, and you can long press to deactivate. We'll talk a little bit about test mode as well. So pretty simple. You activate it, the base station goes off. The base station's connected to the internet. So that's where it activates the PunchAlert emergency from there. So then once PunchAlert's activated, of course, everybody gets notified. If you're a responder for that branch, you're going to get notified wherever you are. So the lights, the sound, there's actually quite a bit of customization we're thinking of adding to this. The base station's also monitoring these things, so it's a heartbeat. So we know the battery level. In the dashboard, in your Rescue web dashboard, you're going to be able to monitor what's the battery level of all my devices, how many devices do I have connected to my base station. So you want to make sure they're in range, you want to make sure the battery is working, and you want to make sure they're not in test mode. So test mode is something that we're experimenting with a little bit now. We're making it really has to be simple enough that it can't fail. That's the key, right? You don't want it to be used in an emergency and accidentally be in test mode. So what we're doing is when it comes off the charging station, we're going to automatically put it in test mode for a very short period of time, which is probably going to be at your control, something like 60 seconds. And then we may, at the web console level, be able to put a device into test mode for a limited period of time as well. But you'll be able to monitor it if it's in a test mode. But you want to be able to occasionally test it. But more than that, as opposed to something like the Safety Turtle where you really had to test it to know whether the battery was dead, we're going to be monitoring it. So we're going to let you know if the battery gets low. We're going to let you know if it gets taken out of range, if someone just wears it home accidentally. We're going to be monitoring for that. All right. Next slide. So you've got this multifunctional clip. We're also going to provide these lanyard strings. So we think wearing around your neck is also going to be a useful use case. So those accessories will be provided with every standard package. The wearable on the wrist, the lanyard, and then of course you could just use them without anything. You just clip it on clothing, put them in your pocket, and so on. All right, the alert station is very simple. A standard package comes with one. You could have multiple. We're asked frequently about this. Should I have multiple? Should I have one at the front desk, and should I have one in the pool area? Clearly we're going to recommend you put it in the pool area. The front desk can get notified through PunchAlert. You can have a computer up there. You can have an iPad up there. You can have digital signage up there. You can have many different ways, just people with their smartphones, of getting notified, having the front desk get notified if there's an emergency. But if you really do want that loud noise that this base station can create, you're of course welcome to add an extra base station to your package. So every why is a little bit different. The range of these things is very strong. We're using really powerful new technology, which is long range, low radio frequency. So it's not leveraging Wi-Fi. It's not leveraging cellular. These things are, or Bluetooth. These things are good for consumer use cases. But when you're talking about an industrial case like yours, we need it to work, and we need it to be a self-contained system that's not reliant on other things. So even though this base station is connected to the internet over power over Ethernet, so you do need to wire Ethernet to wherever you install this on the wall, which can be very easily installed with a mounting bracket. It does have a cellular backup. It also has a battery backup. So there are things in place, and of course you'll be getting notifications if something goes down. If your network goes down, you'll see that the rescue alert station is operating on battery backup, or it's operating on cellular backup for connectivity. So, but the communication between the base station and the buttons, that will continue. That's its own self-contained radio spectrum, and it's communicating on a couple different frequencies as well. So the alert station obviously can play a loud noise. It can play lights. I'm going to show you some previews of what this actually looks like in our alpha development. Our alpha is essentially what we call the first real version that's going to look and feel like what you're seeing here today. We're aiming to get that in the hands of Charlotte, of Kim and her team, to put in a wire or two for at least a week of use before the YMCA Risk Management Conference this year. So, so that's going to be great. So we'll be there in October, and then at the Risk Management Conference in Arizona, demonstrating rescue. That will be kind of when we're going to wrap up by the end of that conference. We're going to kind of wrap up the initial pre-order period where we're offering this discount, and so everyone can see it there. And Charlotte will have used it for a good week or so. So we're trying to get that in their hands in early September. It might end up being mid-September, but they're going to have something to use very, very soon, which is exciting. The charging station is also very simple. These things just kind of clip into place. There's no wires. You just sit it in, and it will be charging. And from the web console, you'll be able to monitor whether they're, in addition to a little light which shows you they're charging, but you'll be able to see that a button's actually in charging mode at that time. So these things are not designed really for people to take them home. Will they last more than one day? Yes, probably, but really all we want to guarantee at this point is that you can use them for up to 18 hours straight. Before then, we recommend get them in the charger. All right. Pretty simple activation as we discussed, button press or automatically in water. And of course, PunchAlert responders will get notified in real time wherever they are. And not only what branch, of course, it'll say what branch it got reported from. It could say exactly what pool it got reported from, because the base stations can be named as well as the buttons can be named. So we'll also know whether it got activated from water or from the button press. That could also be important. So once that gets activated, then responders can communicate with each other. They can call 911 as well if they need to. So because we have 911 plus connectivity, we often get asked, well, will rescue automatically activate 911? And to address that question, the answer is no, at least not in the first phase. Although we are adding a microphone, we do have a microphone in the base station. We're not leveraging 911 plus, even though we could, because we can't guarantee that someone's going to be there to take that call. First of all, it may have been a false alarm. That can always happen, of course. But we need to, if we're going to start a 911 call, we need to make sure someone's on the other end of the call. And so at current, what we're doing is simply just reporting the emergency, the audible alarm, the visual alarm, and every PunchAlert administrator on your responder team will get notified. If you don't have PunchAlert and you're just buying rescue and only rescue, we'll provide you 5 licenses. If you need more, you can always, of course, purchase more. But with those 5 admin licenses, you can be on the responder team, you can manage everything, and those folks will get notified via the mobile app, by text, by email, et cetera, and they can start chatting with each other, saying, is anyone on site? Okay, and they can even see who's on site with the map. And if you're familiar with PunchAlert, you can kind of know where it goes from there. If you do sign up with Rescue to pre-order it, we are going to get you, if you like, up and running on PunchAlert even before we deliver it, so you might as well just start using those 5 licenses ahead of time without an additional expense to it. So it's just kind of another little benefit of doing the pre-order of Rescue. All right, little sneak peek for the technology under the hood. This is, you can see in my hand, kind of the size of these buttons. These are kind of the 3D printouts. We're now moving forward with the alphas. We have custom circuit boards. Everything's been proven out. Everything's been tested. The electronics is really solid. The form factor, everything, with just some slight tweaks to get everything to fit properly with the button and so on. But you can kind of see all the different components there, including the inductive charging, which is kind of hard to see from that picture, but that is working at the bottom. So we're, of course, going to make it a lot prettier by the time we deliver it to the Charotte Y, but it is, and especially, of course, by October. But everything's really been tested to the nth degree. We've picked out the speakers. We've picked out the lighting. You can see here on the right we have this little test unit. This is a base station. That is our base station with the speaker inside and then the chipset inside. And you can see how we use that water to test. And we've tested it, and everything's great. This is kind of the lighting panel we've been testing. For now, we've kept it very simple. It's normally green, and when we activate with the button, it turns red. When you activate with water, it turns blue. That's immediate. So we have kind of all these put together, and it's going really, really well. So we're very excited about that. There's so many great technologies, IoT, Internet of Things technology out there, and innovations that have allowed us to do this. So the timing is really amazing. If we tried to do this a year ago even, this device would have been much bigger and more clunky, and there would have been some more limitations. But today, there's an amazing amount of technology we can fit in this device. There's an accelerometer. There are many things we're not even using yet. We're simply just packaging it for the future. So very exciting. We are going to replace, along with any license, these buttons every year. So, you know, of course, you can hold on to the old ones, but we're going to be continually updating and improving these things. And so, and then because you're recharging them 365 times over the course of a year, possibly, then we need to make sure we give you new ones. All right, I want to make sure we have time for questions. There is a video here. As you saw, I had some trouble navigating to and from that. So if you go to our website, watch the video. It's 30 seconds long. You just scroll down to rescue or click rescue on our website. Watch this little 30-second video, and we had fun putting that together. And hopefully it tells the story in a very quick and simple way. All right, so what is you get for PunchAlert? Now, of course, for rescue, of course, contact us for more details, because you can always add more wearables or add more base stations to your order. But the most basic order, if you had a single pool and a small branch, we would recommend a standard package with 1 alert station. It comes with 4 wearables, 1 charging station, which could charge all 4. We'll provide 4 accessory sets, so that means you get the wristbands, you get the lanyard strings, and you get those 5 PunchAlert admin licenses. We can get you up and running early on those. List price for that is $7,500 year 1, and then the maintenance package is $2,500 per year after that, including the licenses, including the replacement wearables, including the extended warranty on the alert station and the charging. But year 1 is $7,500. We are doing the pre-order discount at 50% off, so that's $3,750. If you are an existing PunchAlert customer, you're using the software already, we can provide an additional 10% off. And if you're not, again, $3,750 is the price per package. For the upfront, we also discount the maintenance. And right now, as part of the pre-order, all we're asking for is 10% down. So $375 would lock you in to get the 50% off upon delivery in Q1. It's looking like likely late Q1, but that's our target. We're trying to get you this thing by March, and we're working really hard to get that done. It is no risk in terms of this pre-order package, because it's refundable. So if you change your mind, we'll get it refunded. If we deliver it and it's not working as intended, we'll just refund it. So really, we're trying to take the risk out of being an early adopter. We understand that there are a lot of folks out there that want to just wait and see how it works for somebody else or test it, and we certainly understand that. That's why we're adding this kind of no-risk clause where you can test it, we can deliver it, or you can just change your mind, and we're happy to refund the down payment. So if anyone has questions on pricing, please let us know. And let me check time. Okay, we're doing okay. So at this point, we'd love to answer your questions for me, for Kim, and just to make it a dialogue. Again, if you're interested, of course, we can always set up a one-on-one and dive in a little deeper to explore what you need at your why. But at this time, I'm going to kind of go to questions. Let me just read some of these chats here. And if everyone else could just please type in a question in the Q&A area, that would be wonderful. Okay. I see there's a question, and I'm having trouble reading it because I can't seem to get it low enough. Oh, here we go. Okay. First question is, we have an outdoor pool and ice rink at our location that this would be helpful for. What is the possibility of using it outdoors? Yeah, absolutely. You can definitely use this outdoors. The wearable devices, the alert devices are, of course, waterproof. The alert station is water resistant. If you're putting it outside, we have been experimenting with some casing, some simple kind of casing. You can actually buy your own kind of off of Amazon, or there are kind of waterproof things you can put on top of our alert station to make it waterproof. If anyone has experience with that, let us know. But the alert station is water resistant. the speaker, that everything's very loud, so it'll certainly work very well outdoors. All right, so we have some other things. Let's see, in multiple area. Okay, someone chimed in about safety turtle. Great, so you use safety turtle, but then they stopped working. We're unable to replace them. We've been looking into alternatives since they went out of business. Yeah, thanks for that, Jen. Yeah, that's a pretty common story we're hearing. If multiple areas in your building use PunchAlert system, how do you know which area to respond to? That's a good question. So with Rescue, what you do, one of the first setup process things you do is name your devices. They're going to come with little IDs on them. And when you set them up, you're going to want to kind of rename that ID pool or the name of the pool you're going to put it at. Or, like Kim said, if you're going to use them at the front desk or the sales desk, you want to kind of name it accordingly. Because there are fancier things you can do. For example, we could have leveraged Bluetooth beacons for this to have better sense of indoor awareness by adding Bluetooth indoor or creating even LoRa, which is a technology we're using, LoRaWAN beacons. So there are ways of doing that. We're also very strongly considering adding GPS to a version 2 of this product. Again, version 2 would simply come with the maintenance. If we add it to the wearable, it'll be delivered in the year 2 wearables. So again, another nice reason to sign up and just pay the maintenance, because it just, you get the new wearables with whatever technology they have every year. So we'll probably add GPS, and that'll help with outdoor use cases. But, if you want to know what building they're in, even GPS is not super valuable. You'd want to have some kind of Bluetooth beacon or something like that. But for now, we've come up with a much simpler solution, which is you name these devices. So if there's a button labeled pool, we'd recommend you only use it at the pool. If you want to use a button somewhere else in the facility, we recommend you name it and label it in the web console appropriately for wherever you're going to use it. So if you're changing how you're using a button, you're going to probably want to relabel it or just go into the web console and rename where you're using it. So it'd be a little bit manual, but that would work effectively. Another question was, how much would the additional wearable devices be? The list price on 4 more wearables, including all the accessories and the accessories and the wearables. So wearable package list price is $2,500, but we're doing the 50% off on that as well. So $1,250 for 4 extra wearables if you do them in the pre-order. Another question came in: how is this technology tested through Cinderblock Walls? Yeah, that's a good question. So the LoRa technology we're using has proven to show immense range over distances, so miles, measured in miles. I mean, I think the record for this technology is over 400 miles, believe it or not. So it's kind of crazy. Obviously, they were probably using very large antennas, but the range is not going to be an issue. But but yes, construction could be an issue. So normal construction should work fine. Cinderblock walls, probably still okay. We'll have to test it. And the biggest challenge with this frequency that we're using is metal. So if you have a lot of metal, if you had steel walls, that would be a challenge. Cinderblock, I'm guessing, should be okay. But of course, during the setup process, again, you're monitoring. The space station is monitoring all the buttons, so you don't have to go around pressing the button all day long. The heartbeat will simply tell you whether they're in range or out of range and whether it's working or not. So that's going to be pretty cool. And so when you want to use it, in a certain area, of course, in the setup process, we recommend you simply take a button and walk into that area and make sure you're still getting the heartbeat. Okay, I don't see any other questions. So if you have any questions for Kim or for myself, please chime in. And in the meantime, maybe I could ask Kim. Kim, do you want to just speak a little bit to your thoughts on, what were you doing? You mentioned what you were doing before this, and having the buttons on the walls. What was your experience with Safety Turtle? I don't think you guys used it, but maybe you could speak to that a little bit more, and why or why not you looked at that, and then just how this also has affected kind of your lifeguard planning, because I know there's been a lot of discussion in Charlotte about lifeguards and how you've been thinking about that. So if you don't mind speaking to that a little bit.
I don't. I'd love to speak. We did not ever purchase the safety turtle. We looked at it multiple times, and we really did consider that as a great alternative as we were looking at things. It was before our 2017 drowning because they had stopped producing it commercially at that point. But there was a lot of feedback that there were some technical issues with the safety turtle, and then also because of our pool setups, it just wasn't a feasible option to provide the level of help that we needed, because if only the lifeguard who had entered the pool could hear the alarm, if we were at a one-guard facility, we felt like it just wasn't really what we were looking at. And if we were going to invest, there were some other systems that we considered, but they were whole pool type systems. So we had looked at Poseidon, and then we had looked at the Aqua Eye, but those were most recently in the past few years, not at the same time as Safety Turtle. So we did not ever invest in another water activated wearable or water monitoring system. Our buttons on our walls are just we have one or two buttons, depending on the size of the pool, that are hardwired into the wall. So the lifeguard goes over, depresses the button before entering the pool, and that alarm goes to our front desk or our sales and service team, and they're the secondary responders, and they come to help. So it's just part of our practice with our lifeguard protocol, but we've had lots and lots of times where lifeguards have just jumped in to make the rescue. Only 4 where lifeguards got into trouble during a rescue, but many times where they jumped in instead of pushing the emergency button because of the proximity to the button. They just felt like they didn't have time to do that before they made the rescue. So how we are looking at, and it's a recommendation from the Model Aquatic Health Code that all facilities have 2 lifeguards. So we in Charlotte have worked really hard to try to get to a 2 lifeguard model for all of our pools. One of our biggest challenges right now isn't monetary, although of course having 2 lifeguards instead of 1 at all times is a financial impact. It's actually a lifeguard shortage that we run into. So lifeguards across the country are in a crisis around just not having the people trained to do the job. So lifeguard shortage is a huge problem. And then you mentioned earlier that lifeguards call out or there's shift changes. So then do you close the pool even though you have the lifeguard there? And then oftentimes with 2 lifeguards, 1 is up and 1 is down. Well, you have lifeguards who then might have stepped out to go to the restroom or take a lunch break, or they're doing something else. Now, of course, there's behavior management that you can try to implement, but our second lifeguard is for rotation purposes, not necessarily to watch our second lifeguard. So it wasn't for lifeguarding our lifeguard. We wanted something that was more foolproof than that. So we were looking for some sort of a technology way to monitor our lifeguards and their safety, and then also for our other spaces in our branch to be able to notify people with a button press in an emergency. So this won't change our lifeguard staffing per se based on the Model Aquatic Health Code, but it does provide a level of safety regardless of how many guards are at the pool. So the Model Aquatic Health Code doesn't necessarily mean that there have to be 2 lifeguards on the pool deck at all times. It just dictates how often our lifeguards rotate and is there a second lifeguard available in the facility to provide backup care. But they don't necessarily have to have their eyes on the pool or be in the pool area at the same time. Hopefully that all makes sense.
Yeah, I think so for sure. Great. Well, thanks, Kim. I mean, do you think, Kim, is there anything else you think people need to know or about rescue, or maybe even just from your perspective, like what are the questions, the remaining questions as we kind of get this to market that are in your mind about functionality or reliability or anything like that? What are some of the things that people should be thinking about related to this new product?
I think the functionality, because we haven't had a well-functioning device, will be on people's forefront, because a lot of the aquatic devices have not been sturdy enough for commercial use, and I think you guys have done a great job thinking through how do you make sure that this is a sustainable product, and then your annual wearable update. So you change those out annually to ensure that there's not a chance that they fail. I think you've put a lot of fail-proof layers of safety in there that definitely eased our mind after knowing the other problems that we've seen in the past.
Right, right. Okay, that's helpful. Yeah, I mean, we tried to look at all the lessons we learned from just talking to Wise about safety turtle in particular, just in general, but what are your needs, what are your use cases, and honestly, it's why it's taken so long. 2 years in the making, and it'll be, I guess, exactly 2.5 years by the time it's finally delivered. So not so easy hardware. The way software can be tweaked, hardware is a little trickier. But we've been really enjoying the process and really excited to bring it to market. And everyone's support, especially in the YMCA community, has really helped us do this. I mean, it wouldn't be possible. The pre-orders, the initial pre-order and this whole discount we're doing, it's what allows us to get it to market. That first batch order is so key. It's why things like Kickstarter work for consumer market, where you can, those people really help a product come to market. And of course, this is an industrial product, so not something for that kind of environment. But basically doing the same thing here, except in a more risk-reduced way, where we're gonna guarantee it does check those boxes because we know your budgets are limited, and so. But that's what allows us to do this. That first order, we're aiming to get a good number of packages ordered, so we can really get this to market and ultimately reduce the cost and make it financially doable as well. So thanks to everyone for their support. If you have any other questions for myself or Kim, please chime in. And if not, we will wrap up a few minutes early. Okay, well, I don't see anything, so thank you again for your time today. It was recorded, so we're happy to send out the recording to whoever missed it or had to leave a little bit early. I know a few people had to jet a little bit early, which is fine, so we'll send that out. And yeah, please reach out directly to us if you have any questions. Of course, I'm sure Kim would be happy to speak for her time, but would probably be happy to answer your questions offline as well. And yeah, Kim, thank you for joining me today with this webinar. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. We're really excited about it and thankful that this is out there now.
Yeah, great. All right, well, have a great day, everybody. We appreciate it.